We're good to go. Okay, so the first thing that I wanted to say before we dive into the introduction of my wonderful guest, Christina Kantzavelos, how'd I do with that, Christina?
Two thumbs
Yeah.
up.
Okay, thank you. Is just make a note about a strange thing, and that is we are both in Switzerland. Are you still in Switzerland? Yeah. This was not planned. We're not having this show because we're both in Switzerland. In fact, when we set it up, we weren't. Neither of us were here, and here we are in Switzerland, but not in the same town. So weird. One of the things that we found out when we were meeting with the people who are hosting us is that this region that we're in a place called Chateau d'Ay, and it's really close to the east edge of Lake Geneva in what they call the Prealps. And in this region, we're really close to a town called Gruyere, and that's where the cheese comes from. And the thing is they have really like authentic Gruyere cheese has to be. There's a lot of rules, and one of the rules is like the cows have to. They only use the cows from. They only use the milk from the cows in the summertime, and they have to be grazing above 1,500 meters, which is like 4,500 feet. It's almost a mile high. And then they have to cook it over an open fire and just, all kinds of weird stuff like that. So the customs in this place are pretty cool, and you can really feel it. And one of the customs that we found out about this particular valley is that anytime you're doing an interview, it's customary to say something along the lines of, "Hello and welcome to the Evolutionary. My name is David Knox. I'm still your host. And I'm so excited for you to be here with us today. And I'm so excited to welcome my very special guest, Christina Kantzavelos. Christina, how you doing?
I'm great. Switzerland is, as always, so dreamy and like to be in the mountains and people will just have like cheese out with a basket. Like just take like on the honor system, right? Like everything is just so precious. It's really nice.
It's true. We came in here and we're just like, oh my God, we're in a postcard or a coffee table book the whole time. And there's like sleighs in people's front yards and flowers everywhere, and everything's got that cool architecture of the ski village and stuff. And it's just amazing. We've been getting a lot of really cool like time lapse stuff of the clouds coming in the mountains and everything. It's really fun. And also people are really, really nice here. Cool. So let's see. First of all, let me tell all of our listeners about Christina. Christina is an international psychotherapist, writer, coach, advocate, and artist. She received her bachelor's and master's of social welfare from the University of California, Los Angeles. Yes, that's UCLA. And her master's of library and information sciences from San Jose, California State University. She has visited over 30 countries and has documented most of it on social media. However, it was in completing the Camino de Santiago, the 500-mile pilgrimage across Spain, that's walking, by the way, at the end of 2015, where she realized that she had a strong affinity for writing. At that time, she decided to start Buen Camino, an award-winning gluten-free, health-conscious lifestyle travel publication. In her clinical practice called Begin Within Today, she treats those with chronic illnesses and rare diseases, including Lyme disease, neurodivergent disorders, and complex PTSD. She also published the Begin Within daily health wellness journals for chronic illness and mental wellness that she now is turning into an app called Within Me. And at the end of the live stream, before we bounce to the after party, we will tell you how you can connect with Christina on the socials. So what we're going to do here is we're going to get into it. When we get into the interview segment, we're going to talk about Christina's story. We're going to talk about the role of healing and well-being, especially from chronic illnesses, in the active evolution of the self. And then we're going to talk about the possible role of neurodivergent conditions in the evolution of humanity. And then we are going to bounce to the after party where we are going to create our somatic authorship statement, which is a powerful tool to regain control over your own life. Okay. But to do the after party, you need to be on the Zoom call with us. And there, if you are watching on the YouTubes or the Facebooks right now, there is still time. You can go to theevolutionary.life/invitation. Yeah, I said theevolutionary.life because .com is so last season. That's theevolutionary.life/invitation. Put in your details, and the link will show up in your email in mere moments. But right now, we are going to do good news and fresh perspectives. And I'm going to share something that is, I think, really good news. And then the rest of the show is going to be a fresh perspective for you from Christina. So here's the good news for today. Brants and Brazil. Okay, France and Brazil have agreed to create a $1.1 billion investment program aimed at halting Amazon deforestation by the year 2030. And the plan is to create a carbon market that would reward countries and companies that invest in natural carbon sinks. And a carbon sink is something that stores carbon, draws it down from the atmosphere and stores it. And the things that do that are rainforests, right? Vegetation. And also the soil itself can store it. And then the sea as well stores carbon. And so basically, we create carbon markets because of regulations that restrict carbon emissions, and where so countries can purchase either offsets or carbon credits, carbon offsets or carbon credits. And a carbon offset is basically, if my company, let's say, has a restriction on how much it can produce, and it would like to produce more, it can invest in something that draws down to offset how much it's producing. This is, I'm guessing here, but I'm guessing this is probably how a company like Google claims to be carbon neutral. And they might not be regulated into it, and so they would be purchasing perhaps carbon credits. I might be butchering that, but I think that's roughly how it works. So currently, the carbon credit market is almost $500 billion, and it's growing at 40% a year. Very good news. And the carbon offsets market is almost $1 trillion already, and it's still growing at 13% per year. And the thing is that each piece of legislation that passes, it stimulates these markets to grow faster. And so it's a no-brainer here that in order to get carbon credits or carbon offsets, that you're going to invest in, you have to do one of those three things, either the vegetation, the soil, or the water. And so reforestation or stopping deforestation of a rainforest is a pretty obvious place to invest. But then there's the other, I think, and the thing about carbon markets that is really exciting to me is that at some point the companies and the countries who are investing in these are going to realize that regenerative farming is the double impact, because they can invest in something that is a money-making machine, right? It's a business. It's a for-profit business that they can invest in and get carbon credits. And regenerative farming not only draws down carbon, but it's also restores the nutrient density of the soil, making you and me and our entire society healthier and happier. And that's good news. And the rest of the show is going to be a fresh perspective from Christina. So just a quick note before I fire into the questions, Christina. I just want to say why I wanted to have you on the show. First of all, we were introduced by a guest that I had a couple months ago, Amy Takaya, and she is a wonderful individual, and you guys have worked together a bit. You've done some stuff. And but you're a psychotherapist and a writer and an author, and in terms of your psychotherapy, you help people with chronic illnesses. And so I have a show about evolution. It's about the evolution of humanity and about evolution of the individual, the self. And so how does that dovetail in? And in my view, it's blatantly obvious. If anyone has either had a chronic illness or knows someone who's had a chronic illness, then they know that it is a major headwind to being able to do anything that you intend to do in your life. Right? It's your time, attention, and energy. Your primary resources can be completely subsumed by this. And so productivity, intentional becoming, right? What the thing that you are trying, working toward in your life in terms of your health, your happiness, whatever you want to, achieve, create, experience in this world, it gets overshadowed by this. And so, at least at the offset, it's really important to get help through this, to try to be as healthy and happy and centered as possible, also for the healing journey, right? In order to heal, because you are the placebo and so forth, a la Joe Dispenza. But also, if you go a level deeper, then the challenges of our lives, on the order of magnitude of a chronic illness or any other challenge of that size, these are the things that generally give us the character that we ourselves appreciate the most in us. And so it can be a massive growth journey. And oftentimes, the stories are just, humanity is replete with the stories of people who become something extraordinary because of those hardships. But that's a really advanced move, right? And some people sort it out on their own. For whatever reason, they're able to do that. But almost everyone's going to need help with that. And that's where your work comes in, and why I wanted to have you on the show, so we could jump on and talk about all that kind of stuff. And so the first question that I have is, so I know all that resonates with you because we've chatted before, but can you talk about those ideas a little bit, and how they've manifested in your journey in your life so far?
First of all, I want to piggyback off your good news report and say that I just read something earlier because I was like, oh, I don't know if I have. There was a 34% decrease in the deforestation of the Amazon, right? I think in like the last, I think, it's 6 months or so. So it
Wow,
has, yeah. So yay, good news.
that's awesome.
Anyway, and with that being said, the health of the earth impacts us and vice versa. Like it's completely interconnected. And the more we take care of one, we take care of the other. So with chronic illness, gosh, there's so many so many directions we can go in with this, but so often I said it took me getting sick to get healthy in
Mm-hmm.
every way, shape, and form on a mind, body, spirit level. And I've seen that with so many others as well. And that in itself is evolutionary, like being able to move through that discomfort and understand the root of the dis-ease in your body. Where and why did you get sick in the first place? Why were you in fight or flight? Why did you go into a survival response? What did you expose yourself to? I mean, there are so many layers to why we get sick, and then there are so many layers to how we get healthy. But regardless, on the other side of it, there's post-traumatic growth that happens, and you become a completely different person, but actually more of yourself in reality, not a different person, just more of your authentic self, because you have to peel back the layers of the things that are not yours to carry on, to carry, um, be it other people's things or stuff from your past or previous lives or yeah, intergenerational trauma, etc. But being on this other side, you were able to see like it was worth it. It's worth it to move through that.
Yeah, can you talk about your journey a little bit?
Sorry, I cut you off.
Oh, sorry. I was going to ask if you could talk about your journey a little bit.
Sure. So I have had like various like symptoms and chronic illnesses since a pretty young age, like looking back at all of the things. However, like in teen years, getting diagnosed with like thyroid issues, and then dysautonomia, POTS, which is like basically an issue with like blood pooling to your limbs rather than staying in your vital organs, so you faint easily or get tired easily. I was eventually diagnosed with celiac, like all sort of like 18s to early 20s, things that were, of course, like not ideal, but I could essentially deal with them. But it wasn't until I went into humanitarian work, which was my goal. I wanted to do stuff abroad. It was with Doctors Without Borders and other NGOs, and I was in Mexico for my last contract, and I got really sick while I was there, and ended up in the hospital, and came back, had to cut the contract, came back here, and was passed around like a hot potato because no one knew what was going on with me. I barely had any energy. I mean, I went back to work, but wasn't doing well. I went and did another Vipassana retreat thinking, okay, maybe this is just like something related to mental health. That wasn't it. I mean, I was just looking for anything I could find. And with the Western doctors, they were just trying to throw steroids at me, and intuitively I just knew, I'm like, that's not it. I need to understand why this is happening on a root level. And eventually I went to Bastyr, which is a naturopath school in San Diego. Like they have two, I think the first location's in Seattle, and go see this other doctor in San Diego who, when he looked at me, just knew right away, just based off of my symptoms and presentation, that it was Lyme disease and various other autoimmune diseases and mold and parasites and all of the things. But yeah, with Lyme disease, I'd never even, like, I knew about it peripherally, but I didn't know a whole lot about it. So I just, trusted this guy and went in, and it was really, it was really rough. But it's it happened. Oh, it's shoot. Can you guys hear me?
I forgot to put you on the camera for the live stream. So
Oh,
everyone who's been listening to you on the live stream, this is Christina. Apologies. They can hear you. They just haven't been able to see you. So
I see. That's okay. So anyway, that was the start of really, really going inwards and doing deep work on a biophysical, mental, spiritual level. And when I started very much getting into the mind, body, spirit connection, I went into trauma-informed therapy, like EMDR. Um, I started doing some deeper spiritual work. Um, and I started the journal that you mentioned earlier, the Begin Within journal, because I read about how journaling actually speeds up healing. And I wanted to be able to also, see where my symptoms were and how they are, and see if there was an upwards trajectory and if there was a way for me to connect dots, because the doctors weren't doing that for me. They don't do that for us.
yeah,
So I had to get out of a mold situation. Like, there are so many levels to this. It wasn't just one thing. And as I mentioned previously, the way we get sick is often the way we get healthy. So cleaning up our environment, what we put on our bodies, in our bodies, what we expose ourselves to, the people we expose ourselves to, the music we listen to. I mean, there are so many aspects to this. But eventually I did start to get healthier and healthier. I went from my mom having to literally give me showers, barely able to walk across the living room, to, we're both in Switzerland right now. I'm climbing up mountains and hills, and I have all of this energy. So it's pretty incredible to have gotten from there to here, but it took years, and it took a lot of work, and it took getting, the right things in place.
yeah. So one of the pieces of your story that I think is the most compelling is how it led you from, you were on one path, you were doing humanitarian work, you were right, and then it totally derailed you and put you on another path where you became the thing that you could not find. And so you know,
Yes,
yeah, can you talk about that a bit?
sure. Yeah, I forgot to mention that. So I,
That's why I'm
for
here.
so long, exactly. For so long, I wanted to do the humanitarian work. Like, there was so much excitement around being able to go somewhere and help people help themselves respond to disasters. However, in some way, it was keeping me in a fight or flight state, like, kind of work. Like, it was really disruptive to my nervous system. It like I said, it kept me in fight or flight. But it was such a big deal to have gotten to that point, and it was hard to let go of. It was hard to grieve. So when I got sick and I saw my doctor, that one I mentioned, who right away knew I had Lyme, I said to him, like, is this something I could go back to? And he was like, no. No, that's in your past. So I had to grieve this identity that I had before getting sick, which actually wasn't, and turns out, my authentic identity. It was so much of it was a trauma response. Even this addiction to helping other people, people don't realize is an addiction response. So anyway, on my path, I tried to find therapists who understood chronic illness, and it's really hard. There aren't very many people focusing on chronic illness. And basically, yeah, I became the practitioner or therapist I wish I had at that time. I had to sort of step into that role, and that was my own post-traumatic growth.
Right.
And yeah,
So
I
you had to
that's
learn all of those lessons along the way yourself in terms of what you now do to help people.
definitely, definitely. And I have no regrets. Like, as traumatic as getting sick was, how horrific it was, I don't wish it upon anyone. Um, I wouldn't be who I am without it. That was part of my awakening process. That was part of my own evolution. My own soul contract, if you will, that I was going to move through this so I could step into this role and be a lighthouse for others, and like help people help themselves on this journey.
Yeah. When you were in the thick of it and suffering and through that journey, at what point did you realize that there was a gift embedded deep within there? Was it early on, or did it take a while?
Definitely. I mean, I thought I was gonna, sorry, try not to get emotional, but I thought I was gonna die at a couple of points. I remember thinking, like, if the doctor just said you have a couple months to live, I would have believed him, because I had absolutely no energy inside of me and I wasn't seeing myself get better. But then I started learning about neural retraining and the power of the way cell visualize, and gratitude and self, and it was a healthier. So, instead of thinking like, oh, okay, I might die in 2 months. No, I'm going to get healthier and healthier in 2 months. My body hears everything I say. So I'm going to make sure that it only hears really loving, positive things, because the whole negative self-talk didn't really get me far up until that point at all. It didn't actually, it only did me a disservice. So it took a while, but I got myself I got myself out.
Yeah, cool. We're going to circle back to neural retraining in a minute, but on my journey, which by the way I mentioned in one of my posts, and I might have mentioned on the show one time, although the vast majority of my friends and family don't know this, that I have received a very scary diagnosis and have what the allopathic Western medical establishment considers a condition that is not reversible. To which I say, fuck off, because they don't know. I've found lots of people online who have healed from the condition that I have. And so, but I've found that my morale, my mental and emotional status, especially in the beginning, was fluctuating quite wildly. And actually, I've had symptoms over the last year and going back years and years and years that I used to think, what's wrong? Is there something wrong with me? I think there might be something wrong with me. There was never enough to go to the doctor. I don't go to the doctor anyway because I don't trust them most of the time. I mean, I will if I have to, but about a year ago, I started having to, and there were times where it was looking bleak, and And the fluctuation was that if I felt like I was getting better, then I'd be soaring with optimism and, everything's great. And if I had a setback or a worsening of the condition, then, I would chase that rabbit down a very dark hole. And, it would be, I'm going to die. I'm going to deteriorate early and long, slow, and all that horrible stuff. And, and so my my point is that you need tools. You need a tools and a skill set to manage through those troughs, right? And I had, I like you was having to develop them on my own, and still that's work in progress. I think it always is, right? Um, but can you talk about tools for people to
You're
manage their
driving
mind through life? And
my car.
we'll just go ahead and mute them. Thank you very much. Can you talk
Yeah,
about, yeah, tools to manage? And you talked about neural retraining and maybe some of the examples of what those are and what they do, and anything else that has really been helpful for you.
definitely. There's a great documentary. I think it's on Amazon. It's called Heal. Have you seen it?
I don't
The
think I
Heal
have.
documentary? Oh, okay. It's really great. And I remember when I first watched that, because you were asking like when did that turn, and seeing it's important for us to hear stories and see stories of success, of healing, so that that's reflected onto you. Like, this is actually possible for me too. Because when you hear an allopath to you, this is not reversible, this is chronic, this is the rest of your life, they're not, at the end of the day, they're not God. Like, they can't actually say that with confidence. I mean, anyway, so in this documentary, you see some pretty awful medical conditions, and folks go into remission, and you see the way they do it. And I'll go into different tools, different resources that I recommend, that I use. But first and foremost, it's this hope and belief in your own healing. That's really important. Like, if you're listening to this, I believe in your body's capability to heal itself. You have everything within you to heal yourself. You just need to tap into the right tools, right resources, heal all aspects of your life. So, um, with that said, I have yet to meet anyone with a chronic illness who is not stuck in chronic fight or flight. And it's not just fight or flight. There's two other F's, which is fawning and freezing. Freezing is what we do when we cannot physically flee a situation. So we have indecision fatigue, we're staring at a wall, we're overwhelmed. Everything just feels so hard. It's difficult for us to focus on what someone is saying in front of us. And then there's the fawning response, which I see fawning and freezing the most in my practice. So fawning is like people pleasing, codependency, saying not saying no when you want to, right? And that's essentially part of Dr. Gabor Mate's when the body says no. If you do not say no, your body will eventually say it for you. And that's that. I know it did for me while I was in Mexico. That was like the final straw. Like, so I was like, and I forgot to mention this, like, I was a chronic overachiever. I was a typical fawner. And I was saying yes to everything, but to what I wanted to say yes to. And the fact of the matter is, when you say no to things you don't want to do, you're saying yes to things you do want to do, and you're giving permission to that person asking you to also do the same in their lives. It's all about living more authentically, because authenticity is part of it, is the antithesis of dis-ease. If you're in your authentic truth, you're in your light, you're in your love, you're likely to make decisions that reflect that. So getting out of fight or flight. So you're in this chronic stress response. You don't even realize that you're in it, because you're able to hold a job, you're going to social events, you're doing all of the things. On the outside, you look fine, you look healthy. However, inwardly, you're not living your truth. You're not living your truth. And you are paying for it in like certain ways. You're riddled with anxiety, you're riddled with stress, with panic, with guilt, with shame, with fatigue, so, so on and so forth, and how that manifests within you. So the way we get out of a chronic stress response is telling the brain that we are safe right now, that we're perhaps at certain points in your life you were not safe, and there was that tiger was chasing you, so to speak. But unless you heal and really ensure that your brain knows the tiger has gone away, it's no longer there, it's going to continue thinking that it is, until you do the work. I always say to like open the door and let the tiger out, because what happens is if your brain is perceiving there's this tiger chasing after you, and the things that fuel that, right? I mean, you could have been bullied. It's just an example, like bullied in school, right? And every little thing after that kind of triggers that. You could be in a work environment where you feel bullied. That tiger comes back. Like, a tiger just does not go away. So um, what happens is that healing goes on the back burner when we're in a chronic stress response, because your body's always going to choose survival over safety. I mean, over healing. So, neural retraining is my favorite tool to get you out of fight or flight. And there are various programs out there, but essentially, it's like a daily practice that you do for 6 months, and it's a way of talking to yourself and talking to your brain and your limbic system, your reptilian brain, to tell it, hey, I'm actually safe. Maybe I wasn't at those points, but right now I am safe. I can heal. Healing can come back on the front burner. So I require this for all of my clients to work with me at this point, that they just choose a neural retraining program of their choosing. I don't have an affiliation, and then they complete the therapy concurrently. So the reason this is so important for my work is because if someone comes to me and they're stuck in a chronic stress response and they're like, "Hey, I heard you do EMDR. Can we just get into it? Let's get rid of this trauma that's stuck in my body," which is so nice. Like I love that intention. But even myself, when I jumped into EMDR as a client without having done the neural retraining first, it caused me to go into a complete flare up with my health. It was
Interesting.
horrible because I wasn't resourced enough to open up Pandora's box to start taking the trauma out.
Okay.
So anyway, that's why it's a requirement for me. And if you're listening and you have a chronic illness or you know someone with one, please tell them about neural retraining, because it is such an important piece. Because often people will come to me, they've been going, they've done therapy, they've seen the best doctors, they've changed their whole life to be so healthy, but they've plateaued. Why aren't they getting healthier? This is that missing piece, because that your brain still thinks there's a tiger chasing it. And when a tiger's chasing it, you're not going to absorb all of the nutrients from your food. You're not going to be in you're not going to feel safe in your body. That's it, because that tiger is there. So that I would say is one of the most important pieces. And then, all of the other things, like eating a nutrient dense diet, making sure there's no mold in your home, or there is going to be mold in your home, but not like that there's not a dysbiosis, I should say, of the environment related to mold. Um, looking at your environment, your work, are you enjoying your work, or are you noticing that it dysregulates you more, like puts you into a fight or flight response? What about the relationships around you? Like really holistically looking at every piece of your life to see what needs to be healed, and taking it one step at a time, basically. Because the other thing I want to say is there's no one size fits all approach for any of this. Like, I have clients who are thriving off raw vegan diets. I have clients that are actually thriving off like ketogenic diets. And so it really is contingent on the person themselves. But with that being said, choosing the tools that feel good for you is is vital. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that last piece. I think it's so vital. I've tried a lot of different things, and the thing that has the knowing, the lesson that has really set in is that there is no one size fits all approach.
Mm.
I've tried some things that turned out to be harmful, and other things that have been magical at certain points in my life, and then not at other points in my life. So because we are evolving beings, our physicality is evolving, our emotional status is evolving, and so we are a different person than we were yesterday, 10 years ago, etc.
A second ago, technically, right? Like
Yeah,
we're constantly the only constant in life is change.
yeah,
And I forgot to mention like another tool, and this is when it applies to not one size fits all, but like for me, like I will proudly say psychedelics saved my life. So, and I get to work with them as a psychotherapist, but it's not meant for everyone.
right.
Um,
Yeah, and there's a lot of people who think it's meant for them, and then they don't actually use it very well. It turns
mm,
into a crutch, like other things I've seen. I've had wonderful changes facilitated in my life through psychedelics, but I've also watched people really lean into it heavily and then not ever integrate it into their state of being. They just go back,
mhm.
keep going back to the trough to get a peak experience, but then nothing ever changes in terms of who they are. So
Yeah.
it has to be the
Yeah,
right thing for you. Yes.
it does. I mean, I just went to the psychedelic science conference here in Switzerland, and all of the studies are psychedelic assisted therapy, right? We're not like that therapeutic component is important. It's necessary because what happens is someone has this profound experience but doesn't integrate it, and then what was that for them other than maybe a high, so to speak?
Yeah, and
Like,
you find the same thing in spiritual peak experiences as well as people, if they don't have a wisdom context to stick their spiritual experience to, they go out and they meditate, whatever, they walk into the right temple in Egypt or something, and boom, and they have this transcendent experience, and then they come back into their normal state of mind and way of being, and they're depressed because they just want to go back there, but they don't know
mhm.
how to do it because they haven't got the training, right? So it's I think it's similar to what you're saying there. Okay.
I was, oh,
Yeah.
I
Go
was
ahead.
going to quickly
Yeah.
say, like, I met someone who's a near-death experience coach for this exact reason, because people have near-death experiences and it's so profound, and they come back and they don't want to be in their physical body, and then they can't quite relate to those who haven't had an NDE, so then they almost push out the spiritual experience. So like he's helping people integrate. So yeah, and like integrative coaches and therapists are just really important for this exact reason.
Yeah. Totally. Okay, we got to do the after party in just a minute, but I do want to talk about your journal. You gave me a copy of it. Thank you very much. It is really cool. There's so many cool prompts on there on a daily basis. It's called Begin Within Daily Healing Journal. And you can get that online or you can get that in hard copy. And it's got so many wonderful prompts to help you get out the things that you need to get out in terms of data, in terms of emotions, and then get recentered on a good way to be, a healthy mindset, one based in gratitude and moving forward. Can you talk a little bit about that for a minute? Give it a nice plug because I really liked it. Thank you for that.
Sure, yeah. So like I said, when I was really sick, I was looking for a way to document my symptoms, my experience, while also focusing on gratitude and self-love and visualizations. And I didn't want to create this. I just wanted to find a mind, body, spirit journal. It just didn't exist. So I created, based on research, each one of those prompts is very intentional. And I just, every day would quickly, and I had to make it like a bullet journal style because I had such terrible brain fog and no energy and fatigue that I needed to make it as easy as possible. But as I was going through it, like I said, I was able to see that there was a subtle upwards trajectory in my healing journey, or I was able to see like, ooh, when I eat this, I get a migraine, or this symptom is flared. Um, so to be able to connect dots and kind of upwards trajectory was just so empowering for me. And I thought, okay, let's put this out into the world. And people have said it's been very helpful on their own healing journeys. So yeah.
Right on. And I heard you say in another interview that there's actually research that shows that journaling helps accelerate healing.
It does. It does. They've found that in burn victims who are researching, researching journaling, that their wounds healed exponentially faster than the control group. Yeah.
Cool. Right on. All right, we're coming up on it here. I just want to say that to everyone before we go to the after party that it is your support that keeps the evolutionary conversation going and growing. And that support can take many forms. First of all, your time, attention, and energy. Thank you so much for being here, whether you're live or whether you're listening later. It means absolutely everything. That your time, attention, and energy is your primary resource, and the thing that really matters is your greatest gift. Also, you can follow us on YouTube. That is of material impact to the long-term viability of the show. That is YouTube/at the evolutionary life. And that will get you to our page. And of course, tell other people about it, share with friends and family. And then the most significant way that you can support the show is by cultivating your vision for the world that you would like to live in and the life that you would like to lead. And, and spend time with that vision every day. Get into it, feel it, and then carry that energy out into the population. And don't let anyone or anything get you off of your game in this respect. It's absolutely vital because most of the world is going to try to tell you that that vision that you have for yourself and for the world is not possible. And again, I prove that this is not a kid-friendly show when I say fuck them. It is absolutely possible, and it is the thing that will change humanity and save the planet. Last thing before we bounce is how can people connect with you?
Yeah, you can find me. I have the publication or blog is Buen Camino with the Q, BUENQAMINO.com or at Buen Camino on the socials. And my therapy website is Begin Within Today. The journals are on there and socials are at Begin Within Today.
Awesome. Of course, we'll put all of that in the show notes. And with that, I'm going to say thank you to our live stream listeners. We'll talk to you next time. As far as the after party people, you don't have to do anything. Just hang tight. I'm going to bounce for a moment, but then I will be right back. And we are going to get into creating our somatic authorship statement together. Bye, everyone.